guys, how's it going? And I just took a road trip down to New York, back home for about 2 days, and we'll talk about like MPGs in this car and stuff, because the main reason why I have this car is because it's extremely fuel efficient, and that's why I kept the car off the lease despite the number of troubles I've had with the car. I really like this car because it is quite efficient. On my trip to and from New York, I refilled and reset the tank in southern Rhode Island, and I got somewhere in the neighborhood of about 48 miles a gallon up to, when I got to New York. Then I hit a little bit of traffic going in and around New York City. I don't live in Manhattan, I lived in Queens, but around that area, there was traffic, pretty much on every single highway. I couldn't go more than 40 most of the time. So I was stuck at like 40 miles an hour and a little bit of stop and go traffic and whatnot. Then dropped my MPGs down to about 47.8 or so. And then I took a trip out to Long Island. My MPGs dropped slightly because, again, driving in New York City, you can't do more than 40 on the highways at any given point during the day for some odd reason. So I was, doing like 40 miles an hour up until the border in Long Island. Yeah, so up until the border of Long Island when things started clearing, then I was able to go, 50, 60. MPGs kind of dropped to like 47 miles. On my way back, I was sitting in traffic almost the entire time. It wasn't stop and go, it was more like just, really slow 10 to 20 mile an hour, just cruising basically the entire time. And then I stopped in upstate New York for a night, and I drove back, and driving a little bit of rain, kind of, not really caring about the MPGs as much because they were dropping anyway. And when I stopped for gas at Mass, the tank read 43.9, and even with all that stop and go traffic and, all the nonsense that I had to go through sitting in New York City, and all the rain also, because rain will decrease your MPGs, just because the road isn't as, your tires aren't as connected to the road. It's still pretty impressive for this car. And, peaking at 48 over, about 120 or 30 miles or so, it's pretty cool. There was one point when I was driving this car, when I reset the tank, I was getting like 50 miles a gallon, just doing my normal cruise, and that acceleration. So I was just doing so I did 50 miles a gallon for about 30 miles of cruising, so that was pretty cool. The EPA rated this car at 2838 when this car first came out on base S and SE models without the select shift button transmission, without the manual mode or the sport mode. If you did have the manual or sport mode, it decreased to 2737, which I can't understand why. I guess I could never explain why that transmission. It's the same transmission, same programming, same everything. It just had a manual mode capability or a sport capability with the thumb rocker switch on the gear shifter. So, with that, you get less gas mileage. I don't think that's true. I've never driven one with one of those rocker switches, so I can't tell if it's 100% true or not. But, and then there's the SFE model, which was rated at 2838 or 2840 rather, because it had an aerodynamic underbody panel, and it had low rolling resistance tires and horrible wheel covers. I mean, horrible wheel covers. So that's the SFE. So this car rated 2838, and 2013 and 14 they completely botched all the ratings. It was like 2738 and then went down to 2737, and now 2015 it's rated like 2638. I don't understand how the EPA is rating this car, because it doesn't really change year to year. It's just kind of the packaging and whatnot changes year to year. So I don't really know why the EPA ratings change every single year for this car. And I think they significantly underrate this car anyway, because, you know, I'm clearly getting much better gas mileage than they say I should be getting, regardless of how I'm driving the car. I'm still, you know, keeping up with speed limits and stuff, so it's not like I am trying to purposely hypermile this car. I'm keeping up with speed limits, you know. I'm generally driving about 5 over the speed limit, so, you know, I'm not going crazy slow or crazy fast, but I'm just doing, you know, in all my effort to keep up with the speed limit, keep up with the traffic, but not mash on the gas every single time I want to pass someone. It's, you know, there's a point where you can, where I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to stay behind the person in front of me because he or she is keeping a good speed for me to just follow along with. So that's kind of my technique of driving. So yeah, that's my MPGs right now. I just filled up the tank about 50 or so miles ago, I think, and we're reading about 45 miles a gallon, and that was just cruising on the highway before. Now I'm doing a little bit of city driving to go to the grocery store. So that's kind of my spiel on MPGs with this car. I really don't like the EPA rating of MPGs because they don't really do real world testing. They do what is kind of like a simulated testing. They run a car in kind of a simulated factory, and they connect your tailpipes, or tailpipe, if you have one tailpipe, to kind of this machine that reads all the exhaust gas and see how much exhaust is coming out of your tailpipe, and that's how they kind of calculate your MPGs. And then they do a whole testing of cold conditions, hot conditions, air conditioning on, off, and then they take basically an average of everything together to get your city and highway combined. Personally, I don't think that the EPA, I think the EPA significantly underrates a lot of cars, especially a lot of sedans. They really do underrate them, but it's also the way that you drive the car. So that's why they always say, your driving conditions will vary and blah blah blah. If you drive if you drive very aggressively and you always are on the throttle, your MPGs are going to be significantly lower than someone who doesn't drive like that. So anyway, that's my spiel on MPG, and this car's MPG, and that's why I really like this car, because it's really efficient, and with the lower gas prices now, I barely pay any money for gas. Like, every time I go fill up the tank, like, I didn't even pay $20 to fill up the tank today. Like, I generally just, it's $20 to fill up the tank most of the way, just about 3/4 of the way. It's a little bit less if, here's a big bump. I hate these bumps in this road. Generally, if I really empty the tank, it's gonna be a little bit over $20. But generally, I don't like to keep the tank completely empty, just because I don't want to destroy the fuel lines. Fun fact: if you always run your tank to empty, you will cause pressure on your fuel lines, and you have to, replace the fuel line and the fuel pump. So, anyway, that's my spiel on MPGs in this car, and I love this car because it gets great MPG, and I never have to pay for gas because it's dirt cheap. Anyway, so that's it for today's vlog, and I'll see you guys for the next time. Take it easy.